Hi there, I'm Scott Martin from Bonsai Matsu, and this is the Bonsai Stuff Podcast. The content's coming thick and fast. This is the 32nd episode for the year 2023. So I hope you're enjoying it. The feedback's been fantastic, and there's been lots of chat lately with people all over the place. Pennsylvania, New Zealand, Eltham. It's spread far and wide, but a lot of the local conversations have been about spring, obviously, and the new growth and how to manage it and how to get the best results out of it as well. And I just wanted to use this podcast to talk about a few things, a little bit of housekeeping when it comes to tools, but also then talk about fertiliser, as well as reading a little extract from one of my favourite tree books that I love, that I strongly encourage you to get around as well. So it should be an interesting one. Fertilising applies, to everybody. Anyone in listening that has bonsai, you'll be fertilising consistently. You should be anyway. So certain times of the year don't do it, certain times you do it, and spring's a really important time to get it right. So I want to dig a bit deeper, get away from the sort of the basics or the fundamentals of fertilising, and just talk about maybe some more specifics on certain trees that I've got that are a bit more advanced, and just delve down a little bit as to what I do to try and maybe help you guys. So listen up, we'll get into it, and hopefully you enjoy this one as well. Sorry for the interruption. I really hope you're enjoying the podcast as much as I'm enjoying making it. Makes the bonsai world feel a little bit smaller and a lot more cozy. Anyway, I'd love for you to become a supporter of the podcast by subscribing for as little as $3 a month. This support will go directly towards the cost of producing this podcast, and it's entirely optional. The link to become a supporter is in the episode notes for each edition. Now that's over, let's get into the podcast. I had a cracking walk today. Love walking around, seeing the trees. There's just blossoms everywhere. Everywhere I look, there's there's just flowers, which is great because it's a symbol that spring's here. It's well and truly here. The weather has definitely turned the corner. We've got a lot more sunshine now, and a lot more maintenance to be done around the place. The pests seem to have woken up aggressively, as they always do at the start of the change of season. But the trees are growing, the weeds are growing, and everything just needs to be managed. It'll sort itself out, but this first month I find is one where you're sort of running from pillar to post, and you're keeping an eye on trees. And I don't know how many years I've done bonsai for now, a lot, and I cannot tell you of one spring that comes along that I don't look at some of my trees and go, "Oh, come on, buds, please open up, come on." Oh, you're starting to swell. Are you swelling? Are you not swelling? Oh, don't be dead. And then I walk away, come back another couple of days later. Oh, please don't be dead. And then suddenly the buds swell and the leaves come out and you just go, Phew. So I'm sure that everyone listening has gone through that in some stage or another with some trees. And, sometimes it's because you've already been through the worst of it, and you've seen a few trees maybe not wake up from their winter dormancy. But I've still got trees. There's in particular two. There's a beautiful elm that I've got, an English elm that has a battle with a European beech that I've got to be the very last trees on my bench to open up. And to this point, I still wonder. I look at them now, and the buds, sometimes I think they're swelling. There's a few here and there that maybe look like they are, but there's no pushing, no green starting to come through. And I just have to remind myself that every year it's the same. There was one year where it got right the way through to sort of mid-October, nearly November, before it opened up. It's like, what are you doing to me, mate? What are you... Anyway, so I do love it as I sort of tick the list and go, yep, that one's up, that one's awake, that one's growing, that one's going, that one, I'm not so sure. Keep an eye on that one. It's coming. But anyway, it's a good time of year. Like I said, I love being outside this time of life, and we're about to get in a few weeks' time, daylight savings. So extended daylight hours for us to sort of make life a bit more pleasant. means I can just mow the lawns later at night. So I've got more daylight to do it with. But it is a good time. And so with spring comes the need to fertilise your trees. And if you listen to the podcast for any period of time, you'd know that I'm a strong advocate of the tea bag fertilising method. I saw it years ago in Japan when I was there in 2012, I think was the first time that I saw it. And I bought back a suitcase full of these things. So I was blown away by it, seeing how simple and easy it was and how effective it was as well, and that it could be really something that you manage quite easily. And it's not hit and miss. It's got a real program to it, a real simplicity. And so, introduce it to anyone that would listen to me for the last whatever many years that is, 11 years. And it pays dividends. It gives me that reliability, consistency, and predictability that I look for with all of my tasks that I undertake. And a general, I call it, without plugging a brand, the McDonald's approach to fertilising that I use, that I put it sort of encourage with people first coming into the hobby, is 1 tea bag per month during the growing season of spring, and 2 per month during the growing season of autumn or fall, depending on where you're listening. So effectively that means 3 bags during spring and 6 bags during autumn, which means every tree should get 9 tea bags of fertiliser per year, and that's it. That's a really simple, solid foundation to work from with your fertilising, if you like. So, and you've got to start somewhere. You can't sort of start saying, but what if But it's just a really solid, basic approach that I've used. And when in doubt, I tell people that's the referral point. That's your minimum you should be doing. But then you get to the grey areas of bonsai. And those grey areas come, it's that sliding scale that I talk about, from development trees through to refined trees, right? So, and you're picking the point with the needle to say, okay, am I to the left, am I in development, or am I to the right, I'm in refinement? What am I trying to do? What does my plan dictate that I've set for my tree? And you can use fertiliser to achieve or help you get to that point that you want to achieve something during that period of time. So this time, effectively during spring, use the fertilising of your bonsai to achieve your objective for this part of the year, for spring. So when you're, I'll go to the 2 extremes. So when you're in pure development mode, you want growth, right? So you're still developing a trunk. You're not worrying about fine branching. You're not worrying about any branching. All you're worrying about is the trunk development and how quickly how much you can grow that trunk. So therefore, you want aggressive growth, and you want to sort of have it go uncontrollably, because the thicker, the longer the growth, the thicker the trunk. You get the idea, right? So in that scenario, instead of 1 bag per month during that growing season, you might go up to 4 or 5. Right, and then in autumn you might put on as many as will fit on the grow pot, or whatever it is that you've got this tree contained in. So you're really oversupplying, fertilise this tree in excess, so it can actually take as much as it possibly can. Gorge itself on as much as you can possibly provide. And then if you go to the other end of the scale, where you've got a tree that's in refinement, then if you over-fertilise that, especially when it's using the stored resources that it's accumulated over autumn, it's held it during winter, and now it's starting to push out that growth. If you add to that by providing nitrogen or fertiliser, let's just broad bucket it and call it fertiliser. If you offer fertiliser to it at that time as well, and you boost that growth, then things are going to shoot off pretty fast, right? And the basic premise, the longer it gets, the thicker it's going to get, means that all that fine, delicate growth that you've got can become really thick and coarse really, really quickly. So your tree in refinement, you don't want to fertilise anywhere near as much, if at all, for that initial burst of spring growth, because you want fine, delicate growth. That's cool. Let the growth come out by itself. You don't fertilise. Then you go through and you pinch it all. You wait till the leaves have hardened off and the tree catching its breath, going, that was a good start to the year. Starts to settle things down, starts to harden off, starts to get closer towards the summer period, that's when you come in and feed. Before so you initially got a growth period where it's pushing out foliage. Then you get to a period where it's sort of catching its breath and it's starting it needs to build its strength up again before it gets into the summer season. That's when you provide fertiliser to a tree in refinement. And there's no hard and fast rule to it, which is why, the 1 bag per month during the growing season, that sort of a thing doesn't happen. You don't look at a tree and go, well, trees in stage 3 refinement should get this, because it's impossible. It's you've got to measure it against the tree itself. And another example is that let's say you've got a tree in refinement that's got fine, delicate growth. You put decades into this thing and got it just right, just beautiful. Then you repot it, right? So you've got a tree that you've repotted. The repotting does the rejuvenation, invigorates the tree again to push off and start growing. Now, if you've repotted and you throw in fertiliser as well at that early part of spring, you've got a recipe for disaster where that tree is going to grow uncontrollably and you'll destroy pretty quickly all that fine, delicate growth. And I know this because it's happened to me. Just back when I would automatically fertilise every single tree that I've got in my yard because, hey, spring's here, 1st of September for Australia. Jump in, fertilise your trees. You need to sort of dig a little bit deeper on each of the trees, and that's where this plan that I talked about at the start of the year, I know I keep harping back to it, but I find it so important, and it's something that I do sort of subconsciously with all the trees. But I think sitting down, looking at each tree and going, what do I want to achieve with this, and how can I use the tools that I have in my arsenal to achieve that? Is it do I pinch the growth? Do I let the growth extend? Do I fertilise? Do I not fertilise? Do I fertilise later? Do I fertilise half strength? Do I, whatever it is? I'm never one about restriction or withholding for the trees. So it's not like I would look at a variety and say, I want my black pine to have small needles, so therefore I'm not going to feed it and I'm not going to repot it and I'm not going to water it properly every day because I don't want those needles to grow too long. It's a really old school approach to it, and it's in my eyes it's completely wrong. I think what you've got to do is educate yourself on what's the best methodology that's currently available to us that we can use to achieve objectives, and is it decandling or whatever, is it pinching new growth on the tree as soon as it appears, is it whatever it is, is it defoliation? Whatever the technique is, there's a lot that can be done with the trees, and I think that holding back vital nutrients or water especially is so far from my approach to bonsai that it's it's off my radar. I don't even think about that, and I use good solid mixes, soil mixes that really encourage really strong, good growth that I can use as a real foundation. So, when it comes to fertilising for me, I'll go back to it, that, the ramified tree that's right in the refinement stage, that's been repotted. If I'm thinking other trees that are at that same stage that maybe haven't been repotted for a year or 2 years, I might look at them and go, what, I'll give you the first part of your growth. And I won't call it a month because, like I said, some trees haven't started to grow yet. But I'll look at it and I'll say, okay, I'm going to let you push out. I'm going to take the tip out of that growth back to the first pair of buds, or back to the second or third leaf bud on that alternating stem. Then what I'll do is I'll wait till those leaves start to harden a little bit. Then I'll give you some food. It might be the ones that have been repotted. It might be, well, what, I'm going to just leave you maybe another week or two after hardening. Then I'm going to feed you. So you really need to have that pointer scale to say, what is it I want to achieve? If it's in development, then you're really not fussed about fine branching. If it's somewhere in between, that's where it can get a little bit tricky, and that's where you'll need to be more on top of your pruning and your pinching. So you might say, okay, well, look at this tree. I've got the trunk. I'm happy. All right, so tick that box and move across to the next one. Primary branches. you know what, the bottom branches I'm still developing, but the top branches, they're sort of at that pinching phase now because they're pretty right. The thickness is pretty good. So I'm sort of sliding the top half of the tree into the refinement stage, but the bottom half is still feeling like it's in the development phase. Well, then you go, okay, so what's most important here? What's the most important thing that you want to achieve with that tree? And it's always the part that's still in the development stage, right? Because the other part you can, you know, cut off, restart somewhere down the track, but those lower branches, the part that's in development, you got to tick that box before you can move across to the next in the list, you know. So it's the trunk and nabari, 1. Primary branches, 2. Secondary branches, 3. Ramification, 4. Very basic, right? It's not much to it. But if you're still working on those primary branches, then you can't be thinking about, you know, an impact for the ramification side of the tree with your fertilising because you want to get those primary branches done. So then I would say, okay, so you're still going to feed that heavily. You know, instead of being 1 bag in per month during spring, I might look at the pot size and go, well, it's a medium-sized pot. I'm going to give it 2 bags. All right, because I want to push it a little bit harder because I still want to develop those branches. Well, maybe it's 3. You know, maybe it's 4 because you say, well, you know what, bugger it, I'm not interested in, I'm not worrying about the apex. I'll pinch that out as quick as I can, or I'll prune it back as quick as I can, and I'll keep an eye on that part of it to stop it elongating, to stop it getting thicker. But I'm going to push the tree as hard as I can to get that growth in there. And I'm not worried if internode length is a bit longer than what it should be in other parts of the tree, because once I've got those primary branches set, then I'll move to secondary branches. Then you're fertilising in a stage like that. You might go, well, all right, so maybe 1 to 2 bags per month in spring is better rather than the 2 to 4 bags for the developing those lower branches. It might go to the 1 to 2, and then you can go through and say, okay, well now I'm going to cut back also any thick coarse branches that I've got around that apex that were destroyed because of my fertilising last year or whenever it was you were doing long branches. So you cut all that out and you effectively hit the reset button and you start again. So your fertilising really needs to be tailored and dictated by your plan, which is the most important part of your bonsai's development, and what stage of development it's in. And it's not, it doesn't have to be exact, all right? So don't worry if you bugger it up, or don't worry if it's, I've put 2 on, should I have put 3? Just do what you feel is right. You know, you get to know these trees, and this month you might go, I'm going to put on 4, and then you go, oh, okay, that's probably a bit too much, And this is the best part about teabag fertilising. Take 1 off partway through when it starts to really push along, or the next month you get there and go, oh, that sort of didn't do as well as what it should have. All right, so give it another 4 then, And then the month after you might look at it and go, yep, I've achieved my objectives. I'm only going to put 2 on this time. Whatever it is, just be flexible with it. Don't be rigid, and don't, as always with anything to do with your bonsai, don't automatically jump into, okay, I've done this, I'm always going to do this, or someone said I should do this, so I'm going to do that, or, forget it. Like I said, come up with a plan for your tree, work out what stage of development or refinement it's in, what do you want to get from the tree, and then just tailor everything else around it, like your scissors are one of the most valuable tools that we have to manage the growth and directional push of resources on your bonsai completely. By pruning an area, no more resources. By not pruning it, resources. Get a weak area, leave it alone. Simple. It's not rocket science, And, over fertilising or fertilising trees that have got poor roots that are in crap soil, doesn't matter. That's a whole nother conversation. But, hopefully now you're on board with this more open mix with the pumice and it's really going to pay dividends, and you've got that plan set in place for your trees, and your fertilising moves into that next level where you think about it differently based on objectives you want to achieve, as opposed to automatically processing it the same way you've always done it. Another thing that I get asked about quite a lot with fertilising is liquid feeding. And I've got nothing against liquid fertilising. Not at all, nothing. I actually think it's great. If you can do it, that's awesome. But reliability and predictability, consistency, I'm not sure that that's always the outcome that I'd achieve with my liquid fertilising. And, I've got a lot of trees, and to go around the yard, fill up a watering can, I don't have an automated system. There's some great ones you can get that you can pump through your watering system that you have, automated feeding, basically. I don't have that sort of setup. If I did, maybe it would be different. But, I think with the tea bag method that I use, I can sort of I get predictability. I know what I'm going to get, and I know if I want to ramp it up, extra tea bag. If I want to scale it down, less one tea bag. Whatever it is, it's really easy, quite easy to manage. Liquid feeds I find are laborious. They're hard work. To go and do. If you've only got one or two trees, then knock yourself out, go for it. But if you've got 20, 50, 100 trees plus, then doing it and making sure that you're consistent with it, that you're giving it to the tree when a tree needs it, that becomes hard work. And I always think that as human beings, vast majority of the time we'll always go for the easiest. Water always runs downhill. It doesn't battle to go sideways or uphill. And so if you've got a system in place that's simple to liquid feed your trees, by all means, go knock yourself out. I think it'll be hard to manage and know how much fertiliser the tree's actually got and what extent it's actually used it. That's another one of the things that with liquid feeding that I find that, you give it to a tree today and, warm weather's here and you're watering this afternoon, you're watering tomorrow morning, you're watering tomorrow afternoon. Next day the tree's sort of looking for that food, and all you're doing every time that you're watering is you're flushing that fertiliser out of those resources away from the tree. Whereas the tea bag method, every time you're watering, you're offering stuff to the tree. So I find that it's really efficient. If the tree doesn't want it, by all means, just pass it through. And what I use in there is just really simple organic fertiliser. One's a blood and bone with nothing added to it, nothing special, and the other one's just an organic pellet. I make no qualms about it. I just go for the cheapest one I can get at the hardware store without all the bells and whistles in it. No soil wetter or anything like that, just the cheapest pellet organic that I can get. And I know that it's not going to do damage to the tree. You can't really overdo it by using it. The tree takes what it needs. What it doesn't need just passes through the bottom of the pot and moves on. So that's my take on it. But liquid feed, if you can, yeah, sure. I'd love to. I'd love to, once every fortnight walk around and, give it to them. And if I find I get a tree that's struggling, I've got babysitting a juniper at the moment that's quite ill, and one of the things that I do with that is I liquid feed it, and I liquid feed the foliage. So it's sort of helping to improve the strength of the tree, and slowly but surely new buds are starting to appear, and it's getting back on track. But that's where I'll use it. So I'm not against it. It's just not something that I can use, or I've got the desire to use in an all-out fashion across every tree that I've got in my yard. So the tea bags are nice and simple, and liquid feedings can be seen as bloody hard work. Now, there's a little known fact that I'm not sure if you're aware of, but I'm a tree lover. I love trees. Seriously, I do. I love them. There's something about them, wherever I go. I was away recently to a place in Victoria, in regional Victoria, called Dalesford, and I love it. It's such a pretty place. I've never had the fortune of being there before, but was up there and saw these massive old trees at the park where I stayed, and my God, some of them just feel like throwing your arms around. They're as old as time, and they're huge, and they've got massive trunks, and it's hard to fathom sometimes. There was one where I got my wife and one of my friends to sort of link arms and go and stand around, try and reach around, and they couldn't even get halfway around the tree, the two of them, around the trunk of this thing, this giant sequoia. It was just incredible, and there's a magnetism to them. And even friends that I was with that, they're not bonsai people. They love their garden, of course, but trees are more a source of firewood than something of grandeur. And we'd be walking through places, and all of a sudden they go, "Oh my God, look at that! That's an incredible tree." It's like I'd stop and I'd say, It is. I love it. Like, look at the bark on that thing, and they're like, wow, you know. So we're all drawn. I think as human beings, fundamentally we need them to survive. That's probably the most important reason why people should respect them. But there's something about them that sort of draws us all in. And if you listen to the podcast, then I'm sure you feel the same way. Because like I said, you know, you can do bonsai or, you know, for the artistic side of it, yep, cool, no worries. But to truly love it, to have that passion, to have that, I don't know, that feeling that we get when we stand around them and we see a beautiful bonsai. It's making the hair on my neck stand up right now just talking about it. But you've got to be a tree lover, all right? And one of the things that I do in my spare time is I read about trees. I read books about trees, and there's a great one. If you've got any of the same sort of passion, there's one called The Hidden Life of Trees by Peter Wohlleben, and it's a great book. And I was just flicking through it the other day, and it, like, understanding that where I am in Melbourne, Victoria, Australia, that it's springtime and that everything's coming to life. And I don't know. The world's a funny place, and things happen for a reason. But I flicked open, and it just happened. I kid you not, I'm not making this up just for the podcast. I haven't been scouring through this book looking for it. The thing's got, I don't know how many pages, 250 odd pages thereabouts. And so I flicked through, and it just straight away opened up to this page 149, and it's a section called A Sense of Time, which was, you know, it's intriguing, this part. So I want to just read this one paragraph because I literally opened the book. It was sitting on my desk, and I thought, I haven't read that for a while now. And so I just flicked it open, jumped to page 149. First paragraph I read is this paragraph, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to read it to everybody on the podcast, because it says, I'll read it for you word for word. And how do trees register that warmer days are because of spring and not late summer? The appropriate reaction is triggered by a combination of day length and temperature. Rising temperatures mean it's spring, falling temperatures mean it's fall. Trees are aware of that as well, and that's why species such as oak or beeches, which are native to the Northern Hemisphere, adapt to reverse cycles in the Southern Hemisphere if they're exported to New Zealand and planted there. And what this proves as well, by the way, is that trees must have a memory. How else could they inwardly compare day lengths or count warm days? That's pretty deep. That part, seriously, I've read that so many times from when I found it to right now in the podcast, thinking I've got to use that, because it's so true. Like, if you break it down and you think, you know, how do trees know? Like, the daylight hours are getting longer. How do they know that today's daylight hours are longer than yesterday's? You know, it's such a cool approach. It's such a you know, when you respect trees or feel for them, I'm sure there's plenty of reasons why. So please just take it for what it is. It's a nice holistic approach to thinking that trees remember. You know, so I use that when I walk around the yard, and I think, do you remember that I come out here every day? Do you remember that I fertilise you, that I pat your soil surface and I talk to you when I go past with my coffee in the morning, or, you know, when I see that you've burst bud, that I, you know, sort of give you a bit of a pat and say, you know, welcome back, you know, here we are, we're off again. You know, do you remember that, you know, that I put as much of myself into you as what I possibly can, because that's honest to God what I feel when it comes to bonsai. And you know, that one paragraph talking about, you know, that memory phase, and the book goes into a lot more depth on different things and how trees are interrelated and they connect and they talk and communicate and all that sort of stuff. And it's a cracking book that has just been put on my pile of summer reading when I get to put my feet up and I'm at a beach somewhere and I've finished my surf for the day. And it's prior to heading home and having an ice cold beer in the backyard with my feet up when I'm on the beach and I've had a surf, and I've got that bloody lovely glow that I get after. Anyone that's been surfing would know what I'm talking about. And then I sit down on the beach and read a book for a couple of hours and just chill. This is the book that I'm going to read. So, Hidden Life of Trees. If you know, if your loved ones are looking for some present for you, then I'd recommend it thoroughly. Another thing that I've read lately too was I was at someone's house doing some work the other day, and they said, "Oh, now I've got this article for you out of a newspaper. Here it is." And they folded it up and gave it to me and said, "Yeah, when you get home and you're having a cuppa, have a read of this." I went, "Great." Sat down, read it, and went, "Oh my God, it's so cool!" And you may be aware of it. It's called forest bathing. So, like, swimming, bathing, forest bathing, and it's something which is sort of taking momentum or taking hold around the world, different places. Japan's got it through Europe. They're starting to do it as well. And the basic premise with it is, go into a forest, sit down and immerse yourself in it, like truly immerse yourself in it, like a meditative state almost. And they're talking about the emotional and mental well-being that can do. Just spending that 20 minutes, half an hour, like a session, if you like, in a forest somewhere, absorbing yourself in the sound of, the birds, the flowing water, the wind rustling through the leaves, the sun filtering through the branches above you, all that stuff. It's good for you. It's we know it. Like you know, if you spend time with trees like we do, then that being close to them is so good for your mental well-being, and it's a lifesaver. It honestly is. But this forest bathing, it just there's a term for it. Japanese got a special term for it as well, and around the world it's starting to take off where these non-bonsai people or non-tree people are suddenly saying, hey, rather than going and getting a back massage or something like that, let's go do forest bathing. And it's something that, when I read this article, I thought back to it for myself. And there's something about when you just walk through big trees, like I said when I was recently in Dalesford, you just walk through them and you get it, like you feel it, and you can immerse yourself and just stop and take that deep breath, and the world becomes a different place for you. But this forest bathing's got so much momentum on it now worldwide that apparently in Japan they have it where they've got slabs of timber in the forest as well, certain ancient forests that you go and you lay down. So you do your session, you pay your admin fee, which I think would sort of raise your blood pressure as opposed to dropping it, but you pay to go and sit amongst these trees, lay down a piece of wood, and then gaze up at the canopy of the forest and just immerse yourself in that part of it. And I suppose the point that I wanted to make with the podcast was it really doesn't matter how you get the buzz, but just keep getting it. If it means, like I said, I came back from a walk around my neighbourhood and I got it then. It's not a forest. It's nothing like a forest. It's concrete jungle. But all the trees in blossom on the nature strips or in the yards or whatever. It's I still get that. I still get that lovely feeling inside me when I do that stuff that gives me the buzz. I don't need to always go into a forest. But when you do go in a forest, stop and take your breath. Take your time. Draw your breath in and hold it for as long as you possibly can. And let it soak in through the pores, because it's it might be a time that you have to pay to actually do that, because they've got a name for it now. Forest bathing. It's not just a walk in the woods. It's not just a hike. It's forest bathing. So you might have to pay your admission, take a number, and join the queue to go and cuddle a tree soon. But anyway, it is one of those good things. So if you want to do some research on that too, and just think about the sort of immersion that they're doing. That's what we do sort of every day with our trees, but that's something I think you can get a big kick out of as well. Right, now the last part of this podcast is the maintenance part. So if you're not big on maintenance on your tools, then probably listen up, but it comes with, it always happens for me. Like, I maintain my tools pretty well. I have them clean, I have them sharp. They're always where they should be. It's that reliability part. I like to know that when I go somewhere and I've got my tool roll, I don't need to open it 15 times and double check that I've got, my small, large, medium branch cutters, whatever it is. You know, I know they're always in the same spot. I'm not hunting for things. I'm not using inappropriate tools or blunt tools or tools that are filthy, you know, or rusty or whatever they are. So, you know, I thought my repotting was over, but no, I went on a visit to a customer and rocked in, and I said, right, we're doing this pruning, that pruning, you know, they've got this forest we need to sort out, whatever. And it's like, yep, cool, yeah, let's do all that, but we've got these 4 more trees to repot. So anyway, now that's it. I've drawn a line in the sand. That is it. No more repotting. I'm done. So as a result of that, what I did is I got out all my tools, and it's like a semi-ritual for me. You know, it's like that closing of the season where I go, you know what, I'm not going to need these now. I'll do native repotting, you know, a couple of months' time. So yeah, sure, things will come back out, but you know, that's not for a while, you know, and I don't want to have tools that are going to be filthy. I want to be able to rely on them, right? So next time I pull them out and I start working, or I'm, you know, doing whatever I'm doing, then I can rely on them. I can know that they're going to be in good condition. So it's something I've done. You know, I get the silicone spray, clean them all down, get all the grit out of the joints as well. All that, you know, especially your root cutters and root scissors and stuff like that, get real grit in there. And I find this silicone spray is great. You know, it gets in there, protects them, blows it out, blasts it out, and puts a nice coating on everything. Make sure nothing's gonna rust. I've got tool machine oil that I use in between the blade as well, so everything flows nice and smoothly. Last thing I do is give everything a bit of a polish. Use my rust cleaner, get all the crap off the blades, and make sure they're looking. Well, they're not looking brand new because they're flogged within an inch of their life, but they're looking really, really loved, right? And the last thing I do is give them a sharpen. I don't wait till I'm going to use them next time to sharpen them. I know it's sort of a waste of time, but I'm going to sharpen them anyway, so I might as well do it now. So when I do go to use them, pull them out, it's like, that's perfect. You know, I tip the dust out of the tool roll, the dirt that's accumulating, all the rubbish that's come from repotting a million trees, wrap it all up, make sure everything's nice and dry, tuck it away in a nice dry spot and go, yep, now I know that whenever I need to go and do repotting, I've got it ready to go. I don't have to stuff around with it and take it out and go, you know, spend an hour before, you know, I go and need the tools to get them ready. I know that I've spent that hour already and everything's perfect. So that's what I strongly recommend for you now. You know, if you've come to the end of it, or even your general tools, we're getting into a season where we're doing a lot of pruning and a lot of maintenance, a lot of cutting is going to be coming up. Just check your tools. Make sure they've got no chips in the blades. Make sure they're nice and sharp. Make sure they're clean. Make sure the cuts are going to be surgical. You know, everything's got to be as good as it possibly can, because the better we do, the better the trees are going to do. You know, it's no point wanting the best in the world and working with rubbish. You might as well get 2 rocks and clunk them together and try and cut branches like that. It's just not going to do the job or do justice to the tree that you're trying to take to that next level. So even for the trees that I have in my grow area, you know, the stuff that's right at the very first building block, I still use, you know, really good tools on them. I still use really sharp, clean tools on them, because I want them to progress as quickly as they can, or to keep going at their maximum rate. And to do that means that I've got to do the best that I possibly can. So anyway, end of repotting, get your tools, give them a clean, and show them a bit of love, because they've worked hard. They've done the job, and they deserve to be looked after. So next time you need them, they're going to be there for you. That draws us to the end, folks. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. It was another enjoyable one to put together with all the different components. Fertilising really important. Again, you know, I reiterate that's super important. But don't just shotgun it out there and hope for the best. You know, think about what you need to achieve, and think about, you know, what stage the tree's at. How do I get the most out of it? And fertiliser is just one of those things that you can either do or not do. And you know, you can, even if you do it, you can stuff it up. But you know, I just think that if you do the best you possibly can and put some thought into it, you know, really, really analyse where you're at with the trees and spend that extra 20 seconds just thinking about it. then go ahead and progress with your plan, because it'll pay the dividends. And that book too, seriously, that Hidden Life of Trees, I'm really looking forward to getting back into that one. I've got some other books too. I look around at my bookshelf; it's chockers with stuff. So I should get a few more and push them out there too, if anyone's interested in different things to have a read of, because I find it's the bonsai books and me. I find it really hard to get a bonsai book that relates to me and to my trees and to what stage they're at, and all the different stuff that goes with it. There's books that I enjoy about bonsai. Michael Hagedorn wrote a great one, which is more about bonsai. It's not telling you, it's not a book of point and do. It's like, this is what you should do and this is how you wire and this is how you cut. Like, those books do nothing for me, and I find that their timing's different, their environment's different, all that stuff. So when I come across a tree book, I actually get really drawn into it, because I try and, in my mind, build the link between bonsai and these trees that they're talking about. It's not hard because they're just trees anyway, but I really enjoy that. So anyway, thanks as always. I want to throw a massive plug into the subscribers too that have jumped on board to support the Bonsai Stuff podcast. It really means a lot. And I love it when you reach out and talk to me about it too, and let me know that you've done it and why you've done it. It's humbling to say the least. So thank you. If you're one of the people that have subscribed, it really means a lot. If you're thinking about it, please jump on board. It means a lot to me in the future of the podcast as well, to keep it rolling. I'm pumping out the content to keep your ears full of bonsai stuff, and hopefully pumping you up and getting you going to achieve as much as you possibly can, and make sure primarily that you enjoy bonsai as much as I do. So but anyway, thank you to the subscribers, and please reach out if you need anything. Socials is a great way to get through the glut of junk mail and rubbish that makes its way to me these days. So if you're on Facebook or on Instagram, they're probably the easiest ways, and I'll do whatever I can to help you. But make sure you're enjoying the season you're in, whatever it is, north or south. It's lovely. It's always a good time. The colour should be coming up north, and the growth should be coming down south. So, and everywhere in between, nice and lush as it is. So enjoy your bonsai. Spend time with them. Give them a cuddle for me, please. And as always, until next time, happy bonsai.